I want to make this into something that I wish I had when I was in the thick of struggling with my skin issues. A lot of us know the mainstream approaches when it comes to skin issues, acne in particular, are topicals, antibiotics, new skincare, expensive skin treatments, birth control, spironolactone or Accutane, all of these ones you guys have heard of. But in reality, 95, even 99% of the time, it's something that's going on underneath the surface, and it's not a topical that is going to fix it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The Wellness Effect. Today, we are talking about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. We are talking about acne and just kind of skin issues in general. We're going to be really diving into what are some of the root causes of acne and also making sure you guys have a lot of actionable steps. This is something I want to make this into something that I wish I had when I was like in the thick of struggling with my skin issues. Because a lot of the time, as a lot of us know, the mainstream approaches we have when it comes to skin issues, acne in particular, are topicals, antibiotics, new skincare, expensive skin treatments, whatever it might be, when in reality, birth control, exactly. What's the other one? The big one, spironolactone or Accutane, all of these ones you guys have heard of. But in reality, a lot of the time, or I'd say 95, even 99% of the time, it's something that's going on underneath the surface, and it's not a topical that is going to fix it, but it also isn't a prescription that is going to address what is going on underneath the surface. So we're really going to dive into everything. I am excited to get into this. I'm here obviously with my girls, Kira and Lacey. How are we doing today? Before we get into everything, let's do a little bit of a temperature check. You guys excited?
I'm excited. Temp is
checked.
No, but I am excited. No, I was just going to say Jeb has such a wealth of knowledge about acne, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's something I'm very passionate about and didn't expect that this would be something that I could talk about in like an authority position if I were to go back like 4 or 5 years from now. But because I went through it, I feel like those are those things where we just learn so much about it. I know Kira had her own skin issues as well, so she obviously has a lot to offer, and Lacey maybe hasn't struggled with acne but has that like psoriasis background as well. So I think we all have a lot to offer in this department. So I'm excited to dive into everything. Shall we get into it?
Let's get into it.
Okay, so the first thing I kind of want to start off with talking about, because I think this really helps us just have expectations almost heading into the episode, is an important lens in terms of how we need to look at our skin. And that is the idea that our skin is an elimination organ. So just like our gut, just like our kidneys, our liver, our lymphatic system, our skin is one of the pathways your body uses to offload what it doesn't need, whether that is waste products, excess hormones, inflammatory compounds. Our body is always trying to detox and get rid of those things. And when those other pathways like our gut or our liver or our lymphatic system are overwhelmed or sluggish, the skin is going to essentially pick up the slack, and we're going to see those things come out through our skin. And so that can mean things like breakouts, congestion, that cyclical acne, but it can also show up as things like eczema and psoriasis. I think a big thing I really want to get across in this episode is I feel like a lot of the times when we have acne, this doesn't just show up on its own. A lot of the times we are those people with more sensitive skin and the eczema, the rashes, whatever it might be, because those things that are driving the acne underneath can also show up in different ways. And so that's why putting things on our skin to fix our skin, our acne, only gets us so far. So topicals help manage what is happening at the surface. And there is something to be said for that. And that's something I quickly want to touch on too before we get into everything, is that there is a place for a great skincare routine, chemical peels, microneedling, whatever it might be. expensive skincare sometimes. A lot of the times it's not necessarily the most important thing. But 9 times out of 10, if that isn't like fixing it, then it is 100% something going on under the surface. And not to mention, those things should be there to optimize our skin. It shouldn't be that we need the things like the retinols, the topicals to have clear skin without breakouts. But those things can be used essentially to optimize, is what I would say in that department. Same thing in regards to, quickly before we get into the thick of things, is like washing your pillowcases and like the hygienic part of things, using the hypochlorous, I think it's called, spray after you work out and after you sweat. Like, yes, those things are important, but in my experience, a lot of the time people aren't having acne because they aren't like switching their pillowcases every single night. Maybe if you don't wash your pillowcase for 4 weeks, then yes, you want to take that into consideration, but it's not the main root cause. And you don't need to be having like 7 different towels and 7 different pillowcases, because that most likely isn't the only thing that's causing our acne, if it is at all. So, anything to note in that department before we kind of move on? We're going to talk about the gut moving into the next section.
No, I think that's makes a lot of sense. And it's just like you're worrying about the wrong thing if you're constantly focusing on trying to like those external factors, you know what I mean, that just aren't going to move the needle. But it does make sense, right? Because it's like we all know people who were able to improve their skin through skincare. So it's like, yes, there's a time and a place, but it's like, yeah, it made sense.
Well, and if
Yeah.
there's like one thing that like if you sleep on the same pillowcase for 3 nights and it causes you a breakout every single time, that still doesn't mean that it's your dirty pillowcase. Most likely, it's probably still something deeper. Like you should be able to get away with the same pillowcase for a little while and the same towel for a little while. But it's almost like when we do a really deep healing protocol on the gut and we have to remove certain things for a little while, it's like it can just like help in that healing time, and then once you're good to go, you don't gotta wash your pillowcase ever. Just kidding.
No. Well, and
Just kidding.
I was even just thinking about that, but you all know people, me, who does only wash their pillowcase like once a month, right? And I don't have acne, and you know lots of people that are like that. So it's like, okay, if multiple people aren't doing this thing, or if multiple people don't have a 15-step skincare routine and they don't have acne, then there's like a good chance that it's not that thing. And it like that's a very nuanced statement, but you get it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'm sure we'll kind of maybe get into the skincare conversation more as we go down, but I think to make a pop culture reference, when we think about like Alex Earl and her releasing this acne based skincare line, like these things can all help with clogged pores and helping with our scarring or whatever that might be. And it's not a bad thing to reach for those products. But 9 times out of 10, as someone that has tried every single like acne product there is, starting from Proactive in like 2016, those things might only work for a short period of time. And so we want to be focusing on the topical side of things while also addressing what's going on under the surface. And one of those things most likely is connected to our gut. So, as we know, there is something, or maybe we don't know, there's something called the gut skin axis. And so, something I also want to like just kind of preface is like, even if you're listening to this and you don't have acne, or you're not listening to it for your daughter who's struggling with acne right now, these also all apply to just having like more glowing skin. Even when I feel like I had clear skin throughout my teens and early 20s, if I wasn't like dealing with this bad breakout, I always felt like I didn't have actual like nice skin that like looked like I didn't have a lot of pores or scarring or bumps or redness or whatever that might be. And it wasn't until I really started focusing on this stuff that I could actually like look at my skin and be like, wow, like I actually really think I have nice skin. And I had never in my whole entire life thought that. And so once again, if this is something you're listening to and you're like, well, I don't have acne, this doesn't apply to me, this is also just to have that like glow, as silly as it sounds. And once again, a lot of that comes from our gut. Our gut is a huge, huge component of how our skin looks, essentially. So
this episode of The Wellness Effect is brought to you by Lifestyle You. If you're listening to this podcast and thinking, okay, this sounds like me, whether it's low energy, hormone imbalances, stubborn symptoms, or you just feel like you've tried everything, Lifestyle You is our root cause coaching program designed to help you actually connect the dots.
We use functional nutrition, personalized support, and functional lab testing to figure out why your body is doing what it's doing, instead of just guessing or slapping a Band-Aid on symptoms.
And because you're a listener of The Wellness Effect, when you use the code Wellness Effect, you'll receive a free functional lab when you join the program. If this episode is resonating with you, make sure to share it with a friend, subscribe to the podcast, and check out the show notes to learn more about Lifestyle You and how to apply. We'll start with talking about our gut microbiome, just giving a little explanation of what exactly that is, which if you've listened to a lot of these episodes, you have an idea, but basically it's just the bacteria and other microorganisms living in our GI tract, our digestive tract, and they play a huge role in our immune system, but also our hormone metabolism, our overall like inflammation in our body, and of course with our skin. And so when that gut microbiome gets out of balance, which we often refer to it as gut dysbiosis, a couple things can go wrong. So that bacteria that are supposed to be like keeping you healthy and supporting like a strong gut lining start to deplete or not work effectively. And what can happen when that happens is the gut lining becomes compromised. And so we've talked about this as well, leaky gut, intestinal permeability. And that is essentially what happens when we have what we're supposed to have is these really tight junctions between the cells of our gut wall, and they start to loosen. And then when that happens, particles that are supposed to be staying in the gut, whether that's undigested food, bacterial endotoxins, other compounds, start to enter the bloodstream. And then when that happens, that's when we start to get this inflammatory immune response, and the inflammation can really start like ramping up. And that inflammation in our gut, once again, is going to present throughout the body. It doesn't just stay within our gut. And the skin, especially for people that genetically are predisposed to having like skin issues, that is where it is going to show up. For other people, it might show up as autoimmunity or just GI issues, and they might not have the skin issues. I think it's really easy to get caught up in like, that person eats like crap, but they have like super clear skin. But that's just not how that is showing up. And it's like that toxic bucket that we talk about so often, where everyone's is different and it shows up differently for everyone as well. So that is going to be a big, big connection here. Now, something that I hear a lot, just like through people reaching out about questions, etc., and just like talking with clients, and I'll briefly mention it, is the connection with SIBO. I think this is like thrown around a lot. And so SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And basically what it is, it's when bacteria that belongs in the large intestine migrates up to the small intestine. And that can cause obviously problems like bloating, gas, GI issues, immune response, that inflammation, and that can also show up on the skin. And so when it comes to the SIBO component of things, typically what we're doing within the program is we're not actually testing specifically for SIBO. Some people might not agree with this, and it's not like a flat answer, like a flat, I guess, rule that I have, but I'm not super crazy about just doing individual tests for SIBO, just because it is a very expensive test and it just only tells us one thing. But with that being said, what we do in the program a lot of the times, if we have these gut issues, something worth noting is your skin issues and acne can absolutely show up, like be stemming from your gut, even if you're not someone that has chronic bloating or chronic diarrhea or constipation. You can have completely normal bowel movements and still have gut dysbiosis that can be impacting your skin. So that's a really important thing to know, because a lot of people are like, well, I know it's not my gut because I feel like my gut is good. And a lot of the times then you do a gut test and you're like, no, it is stemming from your gut. And so what I'm getting at is what we typically do with our clients, if they're not seeing improvements through the foundations, that's when we'll tailor in the GI map, which I think we all are going to want to maybe touch on a little bit, but it's really, in my opinion, such a standard functional test in terms of trying to address skin issues, because it looks at pathogenic bacteria, bacterial balance, markers of that gut permeability, as well as certain markers that might show up with something like SIBO, digestive enzyme function, our immune response in our gut. And it really gives a full picture of what is actually happening, rather than guessing and trying the random probiotic and trying the random gut supplements that really aren't going to move the needle in someone that might have a lot more going on. And another thing that's on there is some parasites and stuff, and H. pylori and all of those things. So what do you guys have to add? I know I got something to say about that one.
The GI map. I think, like, for my story, I just always thought, oh, it's like hormonal acne is what I have. And like, that's not connected to the gut. Like, this was before I knew anything. So when I was working through my first ever GI map, I was mainly focused on fertility and hormones. Like, I don't even think I mentioned acne to the practitioner, or like to my coach when I was in school. And didn't have any major like signs on there of like, oh, this is the acne marker, anything like that, and just worked through my protocol. And they all went away. Like, I had that whole band of like chin acne for a really long time, basically like my whole 20s and into my 30s. And then it like completely went away. And all of a sudden I was like, I haven't had a pimple in like 2 years. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. So just like Jensen said, you might not think it's like really tied to your gut at all because you don't have all these quote unquote gut issues. But I mean, at this point, we know that everything is a gut issue, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, so cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's something we're definitely going to dive into, because a lot of people think that they just have hormonal acne. But as we know, hormonal imbalances aren't a root cause, they are a symptom of something else. And so, like I said, we will dive into that as well. But yeah, moving on. So, next thing we'll talk about is inflammation. So, I think once again, this is just a common trend. When we see acne, we're also experiencing some type of inflammation. And it's also, I would say, a type of inflammation as well. In terms of inflammation, once again, we talked about this one. I think we did it was just an inflammation episode in general. It's that inflammation alone isn't a bad thing. It's a very powerful healing tool that our body has. And so, once again, if we like twist our ankle, inflammation is going to be there. But what we want to avoid is that systemic inflammation. And that is something that we're seeing when we're talking about acne, is that chronic systemic inflammation. And so when that body's in that low grade inflammatory state all the time, not because it's like healing a broken ankle, but because our lifestyle or our environment or our food choices or gut imbalances, mineral deficiencies are driving that constant state of stress and cortisol release, then that is going to drive the inflammation. And so things like gut dysfunction, poor sleep, chronic stress, ultra processed foods, exposure to environmental toxins, endocrine disruptors, these are all things that are going to stack up over time in that inflammatory bucket, that toxic bucket. And when they stack, that's when the body is in that like sustained inflammatory state and has those downstream effects everywhere, including the skin, of course. But like I said, that does show up differently for everyone. When we talk about acne, especially that like inflamed, cystic, like painful acne, that's a lot of the times, once again, people think it's like a hormonal issue, when a lot of the times I would more so relate that to an immune and inflammatory event in the skin, because once that like pore gets congested and then bacteria gets involved, the immune system responds with inflammation because it's trying to protect itself. And if the body is already sitting in this like systemic inflammatory state, the response gets amplified and it's way, way harder to heal. It's going to spread more easily, and then it's going to continue to come back. And so what we really need to do, instead of, once again, having a topical cream to help with the cystic acne, is actually address what's driving the inflammation through things like our sleep, our gut health, nervous system, nutrition. And when we talk about those things as like a form of like health, it's also truly skincare. When we really break it down, that's the best form of skincare you can do. And the number one thing that you should be investing in if you are dealing with skin issues, I would say. What would you guys say is the number one thing that drives inflammation that you see?
Yeah, that's hard. Honestly, I would say it kind of goes back to leaky gut. And which was what Jensen was talking about earlier with those, like, your gut has these really tight junctions. So you think about it as a corset that's like tied up really tight. But then if that corset starts to become loose, then those holes, and then that's when like food particles and bacteria and things that you're eating are going to start leaking through your gut into where places they're not supposed to be. But what causes that is like the ultra processed foods.
And I think we like really love for things to be like one caused by one thing, but it's like if you have a tiny little bit of leaky gut and you also don't get good sleep and you also like don't drink enough water and you eat like ultra processed foods sometimes, like just doing a little bit of everything they could all contribute to it as well. And it's why sometimes people come into the program and they literally just start like implementing 4 or 5 things, like one thing from each category. And it's like, oh, like Jensen said in the beginning, sometimes the foundations alone can just clear acne up for some people. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't know what I would say would be the like stress, probably, because that's going to cause leaky gut. And yeah, I don't know.
And then with stress, which I was going to kind of say was like even like sleep, which is poor sleep is another form of stress. And that poor sleep is going to impact our gut barrier, like relating to what Lacey said. And it's going to elevate cortisol and disrupt insulin sensitivity and drive the inflammation. And so all of these things are so connected. And I agree, there isn't just like one thing that's causing inflammation, causing acne, causing any of your symptoms. It's usually a combination of one. And that's why we see people like, I have the perfect diet, I'm doing everything right. But it's like, okay, you're also the type A person that is getting 6 hours of sleep and like running around your house from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. And so maybe we just need to put some of that energy that you're putting into being perfect into relaxing, or the other way around. Maybe someone's too lax about everything and we need to maybe put a little bit more energy. So it really is just everything. The next thing I want to talk about is mineral imbalances. And I won't get too into the weeds about like a lot of specific mineral imbalances, but before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit about what we do in the program, which you guys have probably heard, but this is something we're doing for essentially every single one of the people we work with in Lifestyle U is an HTMA, because we really consider minerals foundational. I always say this test, the hair tissue mineral analysis, is the most validating test our clients get, more so even than the GI map, I'd say some of the times, because it really just shows them like there is a reason you're feeling this way. And it isn't this complex solution to getting you feeling better. It's a little bit of supplements, changes in our diet, probably a lot of stress regulation. So what we do and why we start with that one instead of going right into like a GI map for someone that maybe they have like the gut issues, they have the acne with that or the other symptoms, is because a couple things, like Kira said, when it comes to testing, I think all of our mindset around it is we don't want to just do all of the tests for the sake of doing the tests. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, but a lot of the times the answers to the imbalances we're seeing on the tests are the foundations, right? And so a lot of the times we can see these crazy improvements through focusing on our minerals, nervous system, sleep, hydration, all of these things without having to do it. But if we need to tailor in and we need to get a little bit more of those answers and discover what's going on in our gut and under the surface, what the minerals do is it also prepares our body to be able to handle a deeper protocol where we might need to do a parasite cleanse or get rid of H. pylori or add in more gut bacteria or whatever that looks like. Because when it comes to our gut, so much of it is like terrain, right? And if we don't have proper minerals, we are chronically inflamed. No gut protocol is going to be the solution alone to what fixes your acne. And on top of that, we need the habits. You can do a gut protocol, but if you're not doing your drainage pathways, if you're not doing all of the things, then that isn't going to move the needle, quite frankly, because that environment that was imbalanced to begin with is going to stay like that. And those issues are going to continue to come back. And now we have another band-aid solution, essentially. So with all that being said, we like to start with minerals. There are a couple things that we see, and you will also probably see if you look up deficiencies and things I should take if I have acne. Now, with all of this being said, nothing I'm going to say here means that you should blindly take these supplements. It is imbalances you want to see show up through things like an HTMA, and sometimes even correlate that with traditional blood work as well. But just to dive into it so you guys can kind of see and hear what we look for if we have someone with skin issues, zinc is going to be a huge one. Zinc is involved in cell turnover, and it regulates how much sebum your oil glands produce. It's involved in like wound healing, immune function, and zinc deficiency is very, very common, especially with people under chronic stress or with gut dysfunction. We'll also see zinc being actually like elevated on a HTMA because our body's burning through it because it's needed to help with those stress responses as well. And a lot of people either are like overutilizing it, not absorbing it, or running low on it, and they don't even realize. And that's something I also, with touching on that, because it's a huge like anti-inflammatory wound healing, that cell turnover. If you're someone that is very susceptible to scarring and your scars never clear, and your pimples stay around for like a very long time, that also isn't normal and probably is because we are deficient, slower metabolic function, and we're not seeing that cell turnover happen. Now, something else that we will often look for and see when we are looking at these HTMAs is copper as well. And copper and zinc also have a really interesting and inverse relationship in the body. So when copper is elevated, zinc is going to tend to be suppressed, and copper excess is very, very common because of our current lifestyle. It can come from copper IUDs. It can come from copper pipes in older home, certain diets. Also, it has a very, very intimate, I guess, relationship with relationship with estrogen. And so when we have estrogen being elevated through non-copper hormonal IUDs or just traditional blood work in general, we're also going to see that copper be elevated, and sometimes things like overt copper, which is just generally too much copper in the body, which can have issues as well. When it comes to minerals, we're really looking for a balance. Another couple ones that we see are things like magnesium. That's a really common one. Same thing with low sodium and low potassium when it comes to people dealing with skin issues, acne, low cell turnover, scarring, redness, and all of those things. So we love the HTMA.
Yes, we do. And it's funny how, like, a lot of the things, like you mentioned, like if you're low on zinc and it's going to actually literally impact your skin, but it also impacts your stomach acid. So your ability to like fight off the bacteria that are known to cause acne is just going to be
Yeah.
lower. And like minerals are just so cool. I
And
love
even
them.
like with low sodium, you need that sodium in order to produce stomach acid. And if you don't,
Yeah.
once again, like Kira said, you don't have that stomach acid, food sitting in your gut for longer and fermenting. And now we're dealing with things that can contribute to leaky gut. And same thing with like cobalt is another really big one. Maybe that's not necessarily a skin one, but when we see elevated cobalt, we're often looking at liver dysfunction, bile flow issues. And once again, that's going to be a huge contributor to skin issues, acne in particular.
So cool.
Yeah. So, next one I want to talk about is blood sugar. We talk a lot about this. I love this topic because it relates so closely to the PCOS and just overall metabolic function. I think we've all like implemented this throughout the years and really can see how much of a difference it makes in not only your overall health, but just genuinely how you feel, your energy levels. So, explaining why it's so important, basically, what happens is if our blood sugar is on this like roller coaster all day long, what that looks like is our glucose is going to be spiking and crashing. And that's going to come from refined carbs, sugar, ultra processed foods that aren't paired with healthy fats, protein, fiber. And so when our glucose is constantly rising, what happens is our body responds by releasing insulin to bring that back down. And when insulin continues to spike like that, what happens is soon our body will become, or not soon, over time, it can take longer for others, becomes insulin insensitive, insulin resistant. And so our body needs to continue to produce more and more insulin to help balance out that blood sugar. Now, the problem with that is that insulin is going to also trigger a release of androgens, those male pattern hormones like testosterone is the easiest way to think about it. And so, once again, when we think about hormonal acne, here's another example of hormones not being the actual root cause. They are a symptom of blood sugar dysregulation. And so, obviously, we're not obviously, but androgens do have an impact on our oil glands. They stimulate those sebaceous glands to produce more sebum, more clogged pores, more acne. So as we can see, glucose spikes constantly, insulin spikes, androgen spikes, breakouts. So
Bad. Insulin
boom.
bad. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I'm going to tell you guys how we're going to balance our blood sugar, but I'll just save that for the end when we're going over things that we can do to help all of these things that I'm talking about. Next thing we're going to talk about is some of the hormones that we do see often correlated with skin issues. Now, once again, I want to be very clear that the hormones are, I would say, never the actual root cause. If you have low progesterone, if you have high estrogen, if you have high androgens, there's a reason for that. Your body isn't just producing hormones improperly because it wants to. It is happening because there is something driving that. So what I mean by that is because our hormones don't operate in isolation. They are downstream of things like our gut health, our liver function, our bile flow, our blood sugar, our stress, our sleep. And so whenever those things are imbalanced, our hormones are responding to that. They are always responding to our environment and adjusting. And so when our gut isn't clearing estrogen properly, which we talked about with the bile flow component, estrogen is going to recirculate. That's going to create more of this like estrogen dominant picture. That's going to drive skin issues as well. But the driver isn't the estrogen, it is an issue with clearance. When our blood sugar is dysregulated, there's that androgen component, that higher testosterone, also going to drive acne, breakouts, clogged pores, but that's not an actual testosterone problem. It's the glucose insulin pattern that we're seeing. When we're under long-term, prolonged chronic stress, our cortisol is going to stay elevated. Elevated cortisol is going to suppress progesterone. Low progesterone relative to estrogen creates another imbalances that can show up on the skin. Once again, the driver isn't low progesterone, it is stress. And so that's why, and I say this with a lot of compassion because I know how many of us have been in this state and just want to pin it on this, but going on birth control for your skin often will work while you're on it temporarily. But what's happening is the pill is suppressing hormonal fluctuation and then that hormonal fluctuation. And so that's why we see the skin clear. But when you come off of it, sometimes months, years, whatever that might be, 9 times out of 10, those things are going to come back and they're going to come back worse. And this isn't to scare you, but that is only going to happen though if we're not preparing in advance. And so if you are ever looking to come off of birth control, but you're scared because you're worried about the symptoms that are going to come back, there are things you can do to support your body so that doesn't happen. But I will tell you, I think a big reason why when I say I always had like, maybe I had kind of clear skin, but it always looked dull. And this is just my experience. I think it had a lot to do with like birth control being in the picture, is that it was like maybe clear. It wasn't having any crazy hormonal breakouts, but it was never like glowing. And there's are probably other things that come into play there. But that was like the main thing I noticed once I cleared my skin after getting my IUD out, was that I could actually like see life coming back into my skin, it felt like, which is wild. But some people will say it's fake news.
Never. So cool.
I meant to talk about bile flow. I skipped this one. So I want to talk about this one because this is a huge one for skin and often I find doesn't get talked about, but is just so important. So your liver produces bile and that gets stored in our gallbladder and then it's released into our small intestine when we eat fat. And so bile breaks down fats so that you can absorb them, including fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, very important for our skin, D, E, and K. But bile also has another really important job, which is essentially packing up the hormones, toxins, waste products for elimination that our liver has produced essentially. And so it's often talked about in the functional space as like your body's packaging system to get rid of things that we don't want. And so when bile flow is sluggish, and this can happen from like not eating enough healthy fats, it can happen from sedentary lifestyle, dehydration, chronic stress, all the things that we talk about, that high cobalt, low sodium, those compounds that should be leaving don't get cleared how they should be. And that can be things like excess estrogen that get reabsorbed back into circulation. Once again, we're going to see this a lot with people with having those like higher estrogen symptoms like acne around like the jaw and the chin, the lower face, especially cyclical acne. So before our period, on our period. And so this is something that we really want to be focusing on as well. And we'll talk about how to improve that bile flow once we go into habits as well. The next thing I want to just briefly talk about before moving into habits is the acne before our period, because I've made a couple of comments about that. And once again, I talk to so many women and they're like, do you break out? And they're like, well, not really, but like before my period, I always get like a couple pimples. And that's once again, like Kira was kind of saying, it might not be top of the priority list for things that you want to fix, but that is not normal. And that is a sign that something is off balance. And essentially what's happening when we see that in the second half of our cycle, so the luteal phase after ovulation, we see progesterone rise. Progesterone causes a slight increase in that like sebum production in the skin. That part's pretty normal, physiological. But what's not normal is the degree of the breakout that a lot of women are experiencing. And actually just like having that breakout, having a little bit of excess sebum production doesn't need to cause a breakout. It can cause even just like feeling like a little bit more, I don't know, not seeing that you feel as glowy that time of month, but having a full blown different face every single time, or even once again, those 4 pimples isn't normal. Now, typically what's happening is it's a estrogen dominance pattern, I would say, but it's not always just because we have that high estrogen. A lot of the times it's because we're not properly packaging and getting rid of or properly like detoxing that estrogen. And so, and it's also in terms of like how high it is relative to that progesterone. And so what happens and why that is there is because it relates back to the gut and the liver. And if the gut isn't clearing estrogen efficiently, once again, those pathways are sluggish. Estrogen is going to recirculate. And if you don't have enough fiber, which is so important, to eliminate that like excess estrogen, it's going to recirculate. And if the liver is overburdened with all of those things that it typically is, or it doesn't have the proper nutrients and minerals to be able to function the way we want it to, that's also going to cause it to recirculate. And then in the luteal phase, when the progesterone rises, the estrogen progesterone ratio is already skewed. And that's how it shows up in our skin. And so that's something that I think a lot of women experience and are just told that it's normal and feel that it's normal. Okay, before we dive into some of the habits, anything that you guys think I maybe didn't cover in regards to like skin or...
No, I think it was great. I think it just really highlights how they're basically all tied together, which I think is so cool. And I'm excited to get into all the ways that we can support it because one usually supports the other, supports the other, supports the other. It's the beautiful circle
Cascade.
of
Yes. Exactly.
So if that felt overwhelming, I just hope people like stick around and listen to the next part because they just all tie together and it's so cool how yes, you're working on your acne and your skin and whatever, but you're probably also going to see improvements in your cycle and your digestion and your sleep and like all
your
of these
hair,
things.
your nails, like
yes. And like I was going to say I had We went out this weekend both nights. We had a concert and a wedding, and I wore makeup both nights, got home at midnight both nights, and didn't wash my face both nights. I
And did you
know.
have a breakout?
And I had one small little pimple on my upper lip, and I literally, like, washed my face, cleaned it, and just didn't wear makeup for, like, 2 days, and it fully went away. Like, my acne used to last if I got one, it would be, like, 3 weeks. So when you were talking about, like, "Oh, if you get a couple pimples around your cycle," like, yeah, they would flare up at my cycle, but then they would stay flared, and then they would take forever to go down, and then I would pick them, and then it would be like you get 2 days without a pimple, and then you get your period again, and you get more.
Yeah.
So it's like it's if you get one, it should just, like, come and go within, like, 2 or 3 days. It shouldn't be, like, that long linger. So it was just really cool to see my body respond that way, and, like, for it to so quickly just I was like, "Oh, no, I'm gonna have this all week," and that's gone already. I'm like, "Oh, it's not even
I
there."
know. I also feel like when you're someone that has like had, I always remember when I was like dealing with skin issues and people would be like, "Oh, I have a pimple." I was like, "Screw you." Like I would love to be able to know like what my pimple was coming from. And now I'm like at that point. It's like, okay, I like had like have a little bump show up. Like, what was that from? And I'm like, "Oh, well, I tried a new sunscreen." So that's probably what it was from. And those are the situations where it can be topical, but if you are just constantly getting them and you can't even like figure out where it's coming from, but even with what Kira said, like that's another thing. You want your skin to be able to handle if you maybe have a late night or you have a couple drinks or you eat like a sugary meal, you shouldn't have to worry about having this insane breakout from that. And the same goes with like your gut. You don't want to like a healed gut is able to go out and have a meal at a restaurant and not be on the toilet for 24 hours. We want that resilience in our skin and our gut to be able to handle those situations without it causing those flare ups. And that's like the end point, the goal of where you're going to end up. And that part takes a long time. But it's also not normal if we're like, oh, I can't have one sip of, I don't know, a poppy even and without breaking out because it like natural sugars in it or whatever, the natural flavors in it. So that's something too, but yeah. Okay, so first thing is sleep. I won't talk too much about it. I talked a little bit about it in the middle, but I just think we all need to know how important sleep is. None of these things are going to matter if we are not getting not only like 8 hours of sleep, but 8 hours of quality sleep. Now, some people, I know you're in a phase of life where that might not be 100% possible, but we really just want to make our sleep environment as optimal as possible so that when we are sleeping, even if it's not that 8-9 hours, we're getting that good deep sleep because that's when that detoxification happens. That's when that cellular repair and regeneration happens. And so if you're someone that deals with the scarring, etc., but you're not getting into that deep restorative sleep, not getting that REM sleep, then that can be like a huge contributor of that. It's also going to cause the higher inflammation. It's going to impact our body's ability to drain and detoxify. And so consistent sleep wake time, dark environment, no blue light before bed, the morning sunlight, that's part of the circadian aspect of things. What else am I missing? Not eating really close to bed. Those go listen to the sleep hygiene episode,
Yeah,
which
I
I
feel
hope we
like
have.
probably not. Maybe
Go search for it and listen to every other episode while you're looking for it.
Start back at episode 1 and just trickle your way through.
Yeah. So yeah, that brings me to the circadian rhythm. So we do have an episode on this one, and it's an amazing episode. So you guys should actually listen to this one. But so important, that morning sunlight. Kira also, I think it was in this episode, I think it was actually the episode we just did about staying on track during the holidays, but how getting that morning sunlight also preps our skin for those more intense UV rays in the middle of the day. Also at getting that sunlight when it's going down and just being very mindful about blue light. It really just makes the world of a difference once you start paying attention to it. So I do recommend just listening to that episode. Something that I will note, I do think if you are in active acne healing, you have that scarring present, and maybe someone has a different method or a more natural mindset around this. I do think that's when wearing an SPF on your face, especially if you have scarring, is really, really important, especially when that UV is strong in the middle of the day, just because our skin, when we have that scarring, it's more likely to stay around if we're getting that sun exposure. I don't know, maybe Kira has a different mindset around that, or Lacey, but
No, I was just gonna say that if you don't have the My Circadian app, just like go get that and start learning a little bit about UVA and UVB, because there is that really nice chunk of time in the morning, UVA, and in the evening. And this is basically like free red light. Like it's the
yes.
same wavelengths as you can get from a red light mask or red light panel, probably better than whatever piece of shit you already have. And it's so healing and soothing to the skin. So if you go out in the morning around that time, I think it's like between 6 and 8 currently. It depends on your location. So you have to actually get the app and look it up. But it's going to like help heal any active breakouts that you have, kind of calm any scarring. So that would be like just such a cool thing to add into. Like, I know it's really easy to think like, I need the red light mask and I need to go get these fancy facials, but there's literally free red light from the sun, and that's
Yeah.
also going to benefit your circadian rhythm. And
that's
all
a good
that.
point. That's something I do really try to do. Like this time of year, I do wear SPF on my face, just like a mineral sunscreen, but I always really, really am sure to put it on after I've been out in the morning during that UVA rise. And I literally stand out there and I'm like, try to wear as little clothing as possible. And I'm like, hey, do your best. Come on. Seriously, the people in like my little like complex must be like, oh my God, this girl's a freak. Stevie's just like going to the bathroom. Like, but
No,
it's
man.
true. It's free red light therapy, like, and the
Yes.
best of the best. So
There's one little corner of my deck that I can put my chair in and like none of our neighbors can see. And I just sit there. I have my house coat on and then I just fully open it and I'm like buck naked, just like butthole to the sun. I'm like, yes.
Cannot wait to have a backyard one day like that. I know that sounds so silly, but I just can't wait to like be naked in my backyard, and it's gonna be so nice. But yeah, free red light therapy, everyone. Truly the best of the best. If you have a red light mask, I would be mindful. I've talked to many people and I actually experienced something similar. It is like I feel like a feeding ground for bacteria. And when it's that close to your face, I've noticed a lot of people get negative side effects to it, including myself. So you want to be really diligent with cleaning it. I also think because it's so close, I don't know, I just have a weird, every time I use mine, I kind of like, you just need to be careful not to overuse it, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm like thinking right now, I've literally never cleaned mine, which is so disgusting. So
That's a good sign. You haven't broke out
clean
from
your
it. So.
red light mask.
Yeah, clean it. I don't know what to clean it with. That's why I also don't clean it very often, because I'm like, do I want to be putting cleaning vinegar on it?
Just like probably like rubbing alcohol, I would say.
Yeah.
Is what I would do. Maybe.
Hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, something like that.
A good little tip, and I heard this on another podcast, like an acne podcast, is if you are dealing with scarring, high frequency wands, great option. You can get, we will link one in the show notes, but you can get them on Amazon, and they are just a really good option to like stimulate blood flow to that area. Kira's actually an esthetician, everybody. I don't know if you know that. So
Oh yeah. I didn't even think of that through this whole episode. That's so funny. But yeah, that high frequency wand, the one that Jeb will link through Amazon, is literally what I learned. Like I went back in like 2008, so like tools have come a long fucking way since then, of course. But I think they're like $100, and this is literally this like high-end tool that I learned about in school all those years ago. So I think that's
great for
really
hair
great
growth too.
Yeah, mine even came with like a comb one, and you can like sit it on your head and it's like
I
so
know.
cool. I love it.
Actually, that's a good, I'm going to ask for that for my birthday, because
good idea.
I've had it in my Amazon basket for so long, and for some reason I'm just like,
Oh, you gotta get one, because it would be so good for like your acne content and stuff.
I know, and I just like, I feel like I just like love watching people do it.
It's the best.
We're coming at a pretty long episode here, so I'll do a little blurb though at the end about some more skincare stuff, and I think both the girls will have some insight. Hydration, this one, like, cannot stress this enough, but not just like pounding water from your tap, cellular hydration, getting a good water filter too, to minimize like heavy metals, but really making sure you are re-mineralizing your water. I just ordered some of the Quinton minerals. I was describing it. Matt's friend is here right now, and he was like, "Are those in a glass vial?" I was like, "Yeah, they're the Ferrari of the minerals, you
Yeah.
guys."
I have
And his
leveled
friend
up.
was like, "Wow, Jensen has a lot of like little tools in here." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a little wellness ground in here."
It's a
But
vibe.
so yeah, things like Quinton minerals are really good. We'll link those. Aussie Trace minerals are really good as well. But essentially, those electrolytes, like I said, the sodium, the potassium, they don't only impact our skin, they impact other things that impact our skin. But also, these electrolytes are what create like the gradient that allows water to enter and like nourish our cells. And so without them, you can like drink a liter of water, but it's just passing through. And that's why a lot of people, when they start drinking more water, they're like, "I'm peeing all the time." But it's because you're actually not like absorbing the water essentially and actually hydrating. Now, for skin specifically, hydration is going to also impact the elasticity of the skin. We've had so many clients come in and be like, "My skin just looks so much brighter just from drinking more water and adding more minerals into their diet." And so it's also going to impact how we can like regulate oil production, that cellular healing as well. But yeah, I think just the biggest thing is when we have that dehydrated skin, a lot of the times what happens is we overproduce sebum as a compensatory mechanism. And so you think about like the people and they're like, "I have oily skin, so I never use moisturizer." But it's when we're not using moisturizer, when we're not hydrating our skin is overcompensating. And so we need to give our skin hydration and moisture. And I promise you, it will love it. You will love it. Okay. Any other like little mineral hacks? I think we probably have some hydration, but like Aussie Trace minerals, Quinton minerals, nettle infusions, hibiscus, vitamin C, coconut water,
Peppermint tea?
peppermint tea. Yeah. If you have high androgens,
Yeah.
spearmint tea,
Spearmint, that's what I was thinking of.
which Matt's been drinking spearmint tea at night. And I'm like, I think you should stop.
Yeah.
I don't know how it impacts you, but I think
Switch
you
to
should stop.
Just switch to peppermint, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I've like
I
started
love a
giving
little
him hibiscus.
nighttime pep tea. It's the best.
It's the best. I know. I've been like, Matt's actually
Love tea.
I know. Usually when I offer Matt tea at night, he's like, "No." But lately he's been actually doing it. So I think me talking about minerals is finally easing into his brain. Eating to balance blood sugar. We're actually doing an episode on this soon. So keep your eyes peeled. But typical things, if we can eat in a certain order: fiber, protein, healthy fats, carbs, eating complex carbs, never having carbs alone, always trying to pair it with a healthy fat, a protein, or fiber. One of them is great. All three of them is best.
And that means like I just
Yeah.
had one person tell me that they heard never eat carbs alone, and then so they thought it sounds like by themselves, like alone as a person.
Even like when people say naked carbs, I'm like, I know that doesn't actually make sense.
So like
That is
don't
so
eat
funny.
eat carbs with a fat or a protein, not like you have to be by yourself.
Never eat them alone.
Never eat carbs, only with a friend.
Yeah. It's a good mindset to have. Just kidding. Carbs are amazing, but just how we want to have them. Coffee on an empty stomach, going for a walk after our meals, amazing. And it's kind of the main one. Keep your eyes peeled for the episode, but we have a lot of things that are going to be in the show notes. We'll link a blood sugar kind of document that we have just with all the good tools. Eating a lot of food variety and color. This is just going to help with our gut microbiome. It's going to help with that mineral status. It's going to help with getting more fiber in. And that fiber is super, super important for, like we talked about, that bile flow. A little hack that I love is, and I get most of my skin clients to do it right when they come in, is doing psyllium husks. So this is just like a really great food-based support. We don't want to rely on it forever, but it can really just help getting that fiber intake up and helping with that bile flow. avocado, and it's just really gentle. So if we have any like gut issues, adding that in slowly isn't going to cause more gut distress. So I really, really like that one. With that being said, we want to aim to get in 25 grams of fiber per day. Something that we often are dealing with is when we have gut issues is it's difficult to add in that fiber. It can cause, if we have fermentation issues or issues breaking things down. So we want to increase to that number slowly, but we also want to aim for gentle fiber support. So things like berries, avocado, if we don't have any histamine issues, seeds like chia seeds, flax seeds. And those are kind of like the big ones, I would say. And then we talked a lot about like the mineral things and then just drainage. So lymphatic drainage, the big six around your face, especially. I notice this a lot if we get like acne kind of like on our neck. It's because that lymph can be really stagnant. And the lymph is what's going to take what's in our skin and make sure it's properly moving through our body. And so we also have a full episode on lymphatic drainage, but this one, like dry brushing, castor oil packs, just that big six activation. Like I'm constantly kind of activating those lymph nodes. We see people doing gua sha a lot for skin. This is something that I would just proceed with caution and maybe just start off with your hands, because that oil, if we're not like, our skin's not used to it, sometimes it can just cause some issues. And same thing if we're not properly washing the tools, but you can just start with doing your hands when it comes to any kind of like lymphatic drainage. And I would just say when you wake up in the morning, try to get that lymph moving, because that's when it's been a little bit stagnant overnight. And hydration is going to be the number one thing. But lymph stagnation is a big one, especially if you notice acne on like your back and like your chest, lower parts of your face. That's something we definitely want to focus on. Other things that we just want to think about: nervous system support. I talked about the functional testing, and I do really think asking, it doesn't need to be us, but would love if it was, but reaching out for support is really great. I've talked to a lot of women that join just like basic acne programs, and I do think that can be really valuable. Do your research, but having that one-on-one support, I think, is, you can't compare to it, because everyone's root cause, although probably from one of these things, it's just different per person. And having that one-on-one support for someone to really look at your lifestyle as a whole can be so beneficial. Kind of moving through them quickly, I just want you guys to have all of the things to focus on. The last thing I'll quickly talk about, and then I'll give Kira and Lacey the floor, is the skincare component of things. When you are actively dealing with acne, I cannot stress enough how important it is to keep your skincare as minimal as possible. So often, because we have acne, what we have done over the years is done the chemical peels, done the intense serums, the topicals, and our skin barrier is absolutely annihilated. And that is going to cause more acne down the road. And so the best thing you can do is keep your skincare minimal, in my opinion. I am not an esthetician, but I know a lot of the times if you go to like a typical med spa, they're going to give you and recommend this really intense, like medical grade skincare, which can be great. But what I believe, doing a good moisturizer, making sure you're really actually removing your makeup. So getting like a makeup removing balm and a cleanser at night only. And then SPF in the morning, once again, during the middle of the day when that UVA is strong or UVB is strong, is something that is honestly all that's necessary. And even for me, in the last probably like 3 months is when I've started to like get a little bit more creative with my skincare. I did oil cleansing when I was going through my journey. That's not the best option for everyone. I loved it for myself. Before I even got to that, I was just doing like CeraVe, which I know isn't the most clean skincare option. There's other ones that are available, but now that, I don't know, I'm just like I'm finally feel like I can have fun with my skincare again. So I've like added in a vitamin C and like niacinamide and like a nice SPF and a really nice cleanser, because like now I'm just trying to think of how I can add more things into my skincare routine, because I think I scarred myself. But we want to protect that skin barrier so much. But I know Lacey keeps it pretty chill with skincare. She's the person that can wash her face with a Dove soap bar and look perfect. And Kira, former esthetician, she actually has like good, I definitely like have been straying away from maybe more clean options with my skincare, which tisk tisk, but that's on honesty. But I know Kira has some like good clean brands that she.
Yeah, Young Goose actually isn't considered to be like a
Oh, it's
fully
not.
clean. It's not
Are they
healthily
greenwashing? Just kidding. We'll still take
No,
you as
they're
a
not.
sponsor.
Yeah. No, they're just more of like a medical grade.
Oh, they
And
are.
medical grade isn't always like clean because they'll just have some. They're not terrible ingredients. They just have the odd one or two. So yeah, I use a brand called Young Goose. And I'm like the person that if I am using a skincare thing, I use one brand. Like I used Eminence for years. It's an incredible brand. It is what I used in the spa that I was trained in. It's like European grade organic. It's fucking amazing. That would be honestly a great place to start too. I used it for years, but then I just get like bored and like I want some excitement. I want to shake shit up. So I order like the full cleanser, toner, scrub, mask, moisturizer, SPF of like a new brand. And now I don't know if I'll ever go back because Young Goose is.
Really?
Yeah.
I know when I was in Charleston, my friends always joke, like me and my one friend, like we just steal everyone's shit.
What's this?
I'm like,
what do you
I'll try that. And the whole time I was there, I was like she had this like sleeping mask. And when you notice it, like immediately like makes such a difference. I'm like, okay, I'm getting that. It's so nice. I'm like loving that. And then the other thing I've been wanting to get, it's Innisfree, which is like technically clean, but it's a vitamin C serum. Loving that. Lacey, these are good options for you to add in if you're curious. And then I got this like Korean skincare.
I have one of those cloths that like takes your makeup off.
Takes your makeup. It's really cool.
Well, I do, but I just bought the Ilia cleanser.
Oh.
Well, tell us how you like it.
And I like it.
Curious.
Yeah. Well, I don't like, that's the thing with me is like, I don't notice anything. So I'm like, it's taking my mascara off. But then even in the morning, I still have to go like this.
You need like a makeup balm.
Yeah.
What was the one that
I have a good one. I used to use one. It was so good. It was
because that sea buckthorn oil just doesn't take my freaking mascara off. And then if I have to like go like this, then my eyelashes are like greasy and I like can't see and it's burning.
It's just like annoying, I find. That's why I stopped using it, is it was just like too time consuming. But it stopped being time consuming in an enjoyable way. It was just like, here I go using 8 different cotton pads.
I love a balm, though.
I know, I need to
Eminence actually has a really nice cleanse. It was probably the best cleansing balm I ever used.
Interesting. But yeah, a good balm, Lacey, that would be a good option, because that's another thing. A lot of people, if you just cleanse once, you're just getting like part of the makeup off. So once again, double cleansing can be a good option, but if you have a disrupted skin barrier, then you want to be really careful. I also just got this new cleanser, and I typically don't notice cleansers like making much of a difference. It's more like serums and moisturizers that I see making a difference. It's like expensive, but it went on sale, and it's called Tata Harbor. And it's like the gentle one, and it's really nice.
Cool.
So yeah, I would just say if you or someone you know is struggling with skin issues like acne right now, keep it as simple as possible. Reach out to us if you like want like a specific recommendation, and maybe we can just have a better idea of like what you're currently struggling with right now. But if you can just keep it simple for the time being while you're going through it, and really think on like hydrating, not only from the outside, but on the inside, it can be super beneficial. Really try not to pick. I love those little acne patches for the sake of just like not picking when you are having those active breakouts. And then yeah, if you can stick with like cleaner products, that's always best. I have a mixed relationship with like tallow on our face. I've had times where it's been really great and like nourishing for my skin. And then I've had times where it's definitely caused a little bit more like clogged pores, and I wasn't loving how it was feeling. So I think that one's kind of hit and miss. I know some people are extremely against it on your face. Other people love it. So I'm kind of off of that at the moment, but
yeah.
That's what I use.
And someone like you, your skin can handle that.
Yeah, you're just like, don't even notice.
Pharmacy is that's the cleansing balm I used to use. It's really nice.
Oh, yes, I've used that one from Sephora. So good.
Yeah.
Cool.
So hopefully you guys got a lot out of that. Hopefully, I don't think we got too into the weeds, but the moral of the story is really when it comes to our skin, what we need to do is focus on things from the inside out. If you listen to those habits that we gave, the drainage pathway support, the minimizing your skincare, minimizing your toxic burden, avoiding those ultra processed foods, eating to balance your blood sugar, castor oil packs, lymphatic drainage. You don't need to be doing all of these all at once, but the really big things are like the minerals, the sleep, the stress management, eating different colors, eating healthy, non-processed inflammatory foods, and your skin still isn't improving. That might be when it is a time to reach out for extra support and possibly look into doing testing like an HTMA. A lot of people move towards Dutch testing when it comes to having skin issues, and Dutch testing looks at our hormones. So once again, I don't really think that's the best first approach when we are dealing with skin issues, because we want to look at why are those hormones imbalanced to begin with, and that is going to stem from other things like our gut, our bile flow, stress, sleep, etc., etc. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of this. If you do have any questions, please obviously reach out to any of us, and we're happy to help or point you in the right direction. And we'll make sure to add all of those little things into the show notes, and appreciate you listening. If you made it to the end, share this with someone that might be dealing with skin issues, or maybe their daughter's currently dealing with skin issues, because that's another thing. Just because you're 16 doesn't mean you have to have cystic hormonal acne. So, any notes to end us off, ladies?
Amazing. Loved it.
I actually have one. If only there was a program that helped you implement every single one of these habits while also doing the testing and also checking in each week to make sure that you're getting exactly what you're doing, it would probably be called the root cause reset, and we would have probably created it ourselves. So shameless plug for the program, but when you were like rattling all those things off and like just pretty much summarizing this whole episode, those are all the habits program. And literally that's our program. So Jensen didn't say it, but I will.
Yeah, I was hoping one of you guys would chime in. But yeah, gotta plug ourselves at some point, because it is true. And even like functional tests, like you can go and get a test done by someone, and if they just give you a basic protocol, implementation is important. How your body responds to that protocol needs to be adjusted. And that's why I think I know we all really agree having one-on-one support is a completely different, and continued support is a completely different experience than getting a test and being sent a protocol and sent on your way. So shameless plug, but
love it. Yeah.
Love.
Okay, well, amazing. Have a great day, everybody. Please make sure to like, subscribe, share this with a friend, turn the bell on, download the episode, and we will see you next week.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Wellness Effect. We're so grateful to be part of your wellness journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on Instagram. We'll put all of our handles in the show notes. If you have questions or ideas, slide into our DMs or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep creating your own wellness effect.